My name is John Scarinza, and I'm going to tell you a story about the long arm of the Randolph Mountain Club. Just last week, myself and my wife Jen took my nephews Blake and Austin for their first overnight stay at Crag Camp and to experience the dreaded spur trail firsthand. Upon arriving at Crag and entering the camp, the first thing I saw was the old Crag Camp sign high up on the wall from days gone by. You see, Crag Camp was originally built in 1909 as a private camp, and in 1939, the camp was turned over to the RMC, and a sign was made memorializing that event. And that sign had hung in the many variations of Crag Camp for 54 years. And the intention was that when Crag Camp was being rebuilt in 1993, the old sign would be rehung in the new Crag once construction was complete. So it was with total shock and disbelief that sometime in early March of that year, just weeks before the old sign was to have been taken down for safekeeping, word came down from the mountain that the sign which had hung proudly for 54 years had been stolen. And the question was, who would do such a dastardly deed? A meeting was quickly convened in the living room of Bill and Barbara Arnold as to what possibly could be done to get the Crag Camp sign back. I had been called because not only was I a member of the RMC, but also I was a state trooper and was assigned as the lone state police detective in the entire county at that time. So beggars can't be choosy. So the meeting started out sort of as, John, you need to find out who took the sign and get it back. It can't be lost forever. Talk about pressure. So we started with the camp logbooks. We went through every entry trying to weed out those folks who might be considered suspects. And after a couple days of discussions back and forth, we focused on a group of 3 men from Massachusetts who no one really knew much about, but they had stayed overnight at Crag during the 3-week period that the sign had come up missing. And thankfully, they were not good thieves, because they had made an entry into the logbook as to who they were and where they lived. But that's all we had, was a hunch that perhaps these were our 3. No, as they say in the business, hard physical evidence. Just a hunch. So, we did the next likely thing. We called them and said, hey, we think you took our sign and we want it back. And they said, you're nuts. We've never seen your ratty old sign. And they hung up. So we were now sunk. If these 3 guys did take the sign, it was clear that they were not going to admit it. And certainly, they were not going to give it back now. So there was only one thing left to do, and that was extend the long arm of the RMC into the state of Massachusetts to get our sign back. So I called the Massachusetts State Police. And I explained to him the importance of our sign. And I said we needed his help because this was very serious business. The good sergeant, who was on the midnight shift, said that he would do what he could and to give him a couple of hours and he'd call me back. Sometime about 2 a.m., my phone rang, and it was the sergeant on the other end. He explained that he had sent 3 of his best men out into the night to pay simultaneous visits to the 3 suspects, and each of them received the following message: find the missing sign and return it to Randolph in 48 hours, or else. And no questions would be asked. He said he wasn't making any promises, but please let him know when the sign turned back up in town. He seemed a little confident. Just over 4 hours later, at about 6:15 a.m., I got a call from Alan Lowe at Lowe's Garage at the base of the mountain. Alan said he had just opened the store, and leaning up against one of his gas pumps was the old Crag Camp sign. He asked if I had any knowledge of why it might be there. I told Alan I had an inkling as to how it got there, courtesy of the long arm of the RMC and some good help from some friends at the Massachusetts State Police. And so if you go to Crag Camp today, you can see the old sign once again in its proper place, securely bolted high up on the wall for all the world to see.